Well, we are winding down with these mini set reveals, and these final two classes here, we have Druid and Warlock, so definitely going to be interesting to see what this brings here. So let's take a look at these Druid cards here. The first one we have is Death Beetle. It's a 6 mana 6/6 with it's an undead and a beast. It does have taunt and a mana thirst of 11. Gain +4/+4 and charge. Okay, so a mana thirst of 11 is going to be a 10/10 with charge and a taunt. Seems incredibly good now with Guff. That's really kind of the only way you can have that more than 10 mana. Now, Guff will be rotating very soon, so I'm curious to see if this was something that they just that they created for kind of a short-term thing with Guff, if they have some sort of plans for later on in the year after Guff has rotated out, or if there's a way to gain additional mana, beyond that. So this is pretty interesting. Again, it still does have like a beast and undead tag. It does have taunt, so maybe there's some sort of other synergy in there that we might be missing. Having charge, pretty powerful, but the time being, this might actually see some play in decks with Guff, like that Ramp Druid. But outside of that, I'm not really sure what is going to be happening with this card. Then next, we have Life from Death. It's a 6 mana nature spell. Draw 3 cards and infuse 6. This costs 1. Wow. This seems pretty solid. The infused 6 does feel slightly heavy, but of course it really looks like it's feeding into the theme of the card. With things like Scale of Onyxia, or even being able to put out the otters, this doesn't seem terribly difficult to pull off the infuse, but you'd have to have it in your hand. If this is put into like an aggro druid style deck, you really could have this in your hand and infuse that over a couple of turns, put it to 1, and then be able to get some card draw. It still would feel a little bit slow and kind of clunky, taking up a space in your hand as a more aggressive druid. But the benefit of being able to play it for 1 and draw 3 cards, definitely something that like aggro druid especially wants the draw. Again, this is one that like maybe this is used after the rotation. It feels a little weird to me currently in the meta with the druid decks that we have right now. And our last druid card is Rake, a 1 mana spell. Give your hero +2 attack this turn. Deal damage equal to your hero's attack to a minion. So kind of interesting. There's definitely still some attack. The quest line is still in standard when this mini set is initially launching. So you could maybe do some sort of like quest line druid that maybe tries to utilize this. Even discovering some cards that give your hero attack, you could utilize this. Even doing your hero power first and then playing this gives you 3. Kind of interesting against a more like aggro style board. If your opponent is playing a more board-based deck, getting a little bit of damage onto a minion and then still being able to attack, you could get a 2-for-1. Really outside of kind of like the questline druid that wants to attack. Right now, not really sure if this is something the druid wants to be applying. This might be okay in a discover, but it's very situational. I kind of don't expect druids to be playing this. And for Warlock, we have, of course, we gotta have imps. Nothing's impossible. I love these little combos, crossovers that they're doing. The 2 mana spell, give all friendly demons and murlocs Death Rattle, summon a 2/2 Implock. Oh, yeah, these little crossovers are fantastic. The 2/2s will be an Imp and a Murloc, that dual minion type. But giving all of your demons and Murlocs this kind of interesting. I kind of want to see what else they've got planned for this. But without those, we've seen cards like this before. You're really only playing this in decks that have those synergies. But in a deck that really capitalizes on demons and murlocs, if you're able to actually pull that off, this card seems pretty fantastic. Having that kind of more sticky type board that's going to continually put things on the board, even if your opponent tries to clear stuff off, You have that death rattle bringing stuff right back onto the board. These are usually pretty great for those aggressive or board-based decks that want to be on board. Then we have Plague Eruption, a 3-mana spell. Deal 2 damage to all minions. If you've discarded a card this game, deal 1 more. Very, very interesting here. So it does deal damage to all minions. Discarding is not very common currently with Warlock. At least not in Standard. I know there is a discard Warlock that is really popular in Wild, but for Standard, discard really hasn't been a thing. There is a little bit of, I guess, with Scourge supplies, if you're playing that, which is usually being played really only in Mine Warlock currently. That's the draw 3, discard 1 of them. You just have to play one of those, and then this effect already means you're dealing 3 damage to all minions. So just on that, maybe this gets played in the Mine Warlock, but I think the tools that the Mine Warlock has are already pretty efficient and don't require that kind of extra little use. So this probably doesn't get played currently in the current iteration of Mine Warlock, but definitely in the future, I think that this could be utilized, and having some board clears for Warlock, especially a cheaper one like this, always seems like something that Warlock wants. So maybe after rotation, this is something that we will end up seeing. And lastly, we have Suspicious Peddler, a 2-mana 2/3 undead with Battlecry. Discover a 1-cost card. If your opponent guesses your choice, they get a copy. Very, very similar to a card that already exists in Mage, so this is not really any different. Now, I think a lot of people have talked about like how not great the card is for Mage. Kind of feel that same way here. 1-cost cards, okay, sure. There are some Warlock, 1-cost cards that are pretty decent. Again, right now with Warlock, this is probably not a card I really see getting used. I think a lot of the Warlock decks that are at least higher tier are kind of already figured out. They're kind of pretty stable, and they don't really need additional tools like this. Now, this could be something, especially after rotation. Again, when it's a 3-set meta, there's going to be a lot less cards. So looking at the 1-card pool at that point could be huge and maybe actually help this card out. Maybe you get kind of the 1-cost card that you're really looking for at that point. But people might be trying this one out just to try and see what they can get, because people have been playing the Mage one that is very similar. What do you think of these cards? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for checking this one out. If you missed any of the other cards that I did, you can feel free to check out this latest video here.